Good afternoon, Youngstown. We are back again with another episode of Belly Left Leadership, and I am extremely excited today to have our guest, someone I consider a friend that has really helped me in almost my first year as a superintendent. We have our illustrious, esteemed Mayor of Youngstown, Mayor Tito Brown, who is the Mayor of Youngstown. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the mayor, but then he can tell you a little bit more about his journey. Right. Tito Brown is a lifelong resident of Youngstown. He was elected the 51st mayor of the city of Youngstown on November 7th, 2017. He was formerly the chief deputy treasurer overseeing day-to-day operations of the Mahoney County Treasurer's Office. Brown has also served as the director of the Human Relations Commission for the city of Youngstown. Mayor Brown is married to Lynette C. Frost Brown. They have 4 children, Aaron, Camille, Clarissa, and Quentin. He earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees from Youngstown State University and is a graduate of the Rand School.
There it is.
He was also bestowed an honorary doctorate from Youngstown State. Mayor Brown is a lifelong resident of Youngstown, and I am just elated to have him on this episode of Belly Left Leadership. And remember, this podcast is to celebrate the art of leadership, but also the great things happening in Youngstown within our school district and in our entire community as we do the belly left. It's a simple play, but it is about precision. It's about execution. It's about preparation and everyone knowing their role. And I think the mayor would agree with me. We all have a role here in the city of Youngstown to continue to create the Youngstown excellence experience within the Youngstown City School District. And in our role, we want to help create a greater and better Youngstown. So, Mayor, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the introduction. I didn't know I did all those things.
You did. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Tell us about your leadership journey from being a graduate of the Rand School to now serving as the mayor of the city of Youngstown.
Yeah. It started in high school and junior high school. I started being an active participant in junior high school on student council.
Okay.
And then on to high school, I was the class president. So it started there. But I like to tell people my leadership started in 6th grade.
Okay.
I was a crossing guard. I was a captain of the crossing guards.
He was the
captain of the crossing guards. And that's when you knew, I would just say that's when I always wanted to be involved.
Okay.
I got involved and early on and becoming a crossing guard, and crossing guards, you were the man. So I always tell the story. That's when my leadership started.
What color was the vest?
Orange. Orange. Okay. I had the badge. And mine's had captain on it. Okay. The rest of the guys just had a badge. My badge said captain on it.
Okay, so you knew then.
I just knew that I would say, for when you're in leadership, you're wired for everybody's wired different. I was always wired to be engaged and involved. And some people's like, I don't want to do that. I was like, yeah, I'll do that.
All right. So tell us some, before you became mayor, what are some other things that you've done in your lifetime?
Man, you know what? I started I cut my teeth right now, and I use a lot of what I've learned. When I came out of college, I worked for CCA.
Okay.
Rick Billick was one of my teachers in criminal justice. Dr. B, God rest his soul, man. He gave me my first shot.
Okay.
And I had him for class, and I used to just say, Doc, I want to work for you. He's like, you don't want to work for me. And I said, Doc, I'm telling you, man, give me a job. I'll work for you.
Yeah.
And it just became the relationship. I started there. I was the probation officer in the house arrest program.
Okay.
And it gave me the sense, because it was criminal justice was my major, social work was my minor. And I worked there for some time. And then I had the best experience in my lifetime. I got an opportunity to go and work for Mahoney County Children's Service.
Okay.
And that gave me it exposed you to every aspect of working in the public. I met my wife Lynette there, so that was that was a plus for me as well. And we were co-workers, we were friends, so that was I always tell that
origin story.
I tell the story all the time, and she gets upset because I say she was after me the first day I got there. So if she's watching this, she's going to tell me that was not how it happened. But got to children's service, worked there for a while. Only reason I left Jeremy because I had 5 years. I went 5 years without even thinking about changing my resume. Mm-hmm. It started becoming more about paperwork and not people. And when it got to that point, I'm like, it's time for me to leave. Went on to university, Youngstown State. There was an opportunity to be a community organizer. Had no idea what a community organizer was.
Okay.
Ran into a local community organizer, and he said, "Son, I'm gonna give you the best definition. Your job as a community organizer is bringing people to the table."
Okay.
And I've used that as like a skill I use as mayor.
Yeah.
I bring people to the table. Worked there for some time. Had an opportunity to work on a couple campaigns. Started getting involved in school board. My son was in the district at the time, and two of my teachers, Mrs. Williams and Miss Dabney,
Okay.
they say, "You would be a great school board member." And I'm like, "No, I'm good." I'd be honest, people don't believe that. I like, no, I don't want to be I have no, and they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
All right.
fast forward, city council, president council. But even working, I worked for 10 years at the county treasurer's office.
Okay.
So my working gave me an exposure to different forms of government, but also forms of leadership. And when I became mayor, it was all of those things kind of just pop up every now and again.
Yeah.
I'm working on some issues around housing and mental health. And my job is I brought folks to the table. That's all my job. Get them to the table, not to tell them what to do when they get to the table, but find out I was asked, how can I help?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads us to our next thing. What are some of the initiatives that you're working on right now, in terms of, the city and improvements for the city or enhancement or whatever? What are some of the things you're working on right now?
Now, most people just see the structural pieces. I like to talk about the impactful pieces, the thing that's going to impact the people. We're focusing a lot on homelessness.
Okay.
And people they identify homeless as the people you see on the streets, maybe pushing a buggy or living on. That's not necessarily homeless. That if you're living in a home right now and you're month to month on your rent, you're close to being homeless. Or if you're not homeless, you're just paying monthly. Or if you're living on someone's couch, you're couch surfing, you're homeless. If you don't have a mortgage on the house you're living in or rent to own, you could be homeless. So we try to figure out the impacts of that. The other piece is mental health. We all talk about the mental health, and it was really as I sit as the mayor and I talk to our police and find out what they go through in our fire and what they are going through. The mental health is not just outside of City Hall; it's internally in City Hall. So we're focusing on internal things for mental health for our staff.
Okay.
Really giving them a resource center. I would eventually love to have just a room of resources and maybe just a room of peace and quiet time for them.
Yeah.
My biggest project right now, I'm working on putting together the Old Bottom Dollar.
Okay.
We want to put a infant mortality clinic there.
Yeah.
There's the Village of Healing out of Cleveland, and we want to put an infant mortality clinic in there. I want to put a food access, like we have a mobile market. I want to put everything that's on the mobile market. I want to put in that building, and then have maybe a needs assessment and opportunity for people and figure out why you need these help and what's the help there for you. So that's my, that's the one we've been talking about infant mortality for some time. I'm really ready to put some rubber to the road and make it happen.
So I'm listening to you, and you and I've talked a couple of times, and I've said to you, I truly believe that what happens in our schools, I won't say my schools, in our schools, absolutely is impacting what's going on in your city, in our city, and vice versa. And so, I'm listening to you talk about homelessness and all those types of things, and all those things are definitely impacting our school district. On our way up today, we ran into Dr. Freeman, who helps oversee supports for folks experiencing homelessness. But I guess for me, as the superintendent, and in us in our district and with our journey, what role do you see us as the school district playing in improving the livelihood of the city? Yeah,
I think that the district is got to be on kind of the same focus, and when we talk about people, because some of the same people I'm talking about, I may be focusing on mom, dad, or grandma, but the children are also involved and impacted for that. I always say, whenever you see the 6 o'clock news, if there's a situation, whatever is happening, there's a child, a student attached to that story at some point. So I think we work at both sides of, I know that if I see it on the adult side of the world, you see the children, that we make sure that we have resources and opportunity and access for them, where we don't segregate, where, I'm only working or figuring out something for mom. We need to figure out what about the children. And we know with children, there's a little more delicate because of being a juvenile, but even in the school system and the infant mortality piece, we talk about what good health looks like. So you being a partner to say, hey, let me know what position I can play in this.
Right.
Putting it back to the football analogy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the special teams is the one who wins the game, or sometimes they lose the game.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So we look at our partners in the educational piece for making sure you know what you have an idea of what's out there, but also that if we have mental health, we have homeless conversations with the adults, probably need to figure out what the kids are doing, because they may be the ones that you may see it first. You may see the issues of being homeless, living from home to home, couch to couch, and I saw that working at Children's Service firsthand. We would get called in because mom living with grandma, and grandma says, "I don't have the resources to keep them here. I don't want to put them out, but I don't have the resources to keep them here."
Right.
So our job is to figure out the resources, and that's where I'm using those pieces to say, you know what, let me figure out how do we keep this family together, and how do we sustain when mom doesn't have to live with grandma anymore.
Okay. So this afternoon, I know you had conversations, and you actually linked me up with Governor DeWine back in the fall, and he'll be in town. And so we're having a literacy roundtable this afternoon with local superintendents and Youngstown State University. But and he is very highly involved in education and literacy. But as a mayor and someone that's involved even at the state and federal level, where do you see the future of education, and what role does the city play in that?
Yeah, I think so for me is, I look at the economics. I just did an interview today with Harvard Magazine, and they were asking the same question. And I said, here's what has to happen. You've got to have a workforce that's job ready, job trained, and job access.
Yes,
I say now with Gateway Community College kind of moving out, now we're going to need our public education like Chaffin to step in and say, here's what we can offer. And the one thing I loved about the Gateway is they would ask, I would say, hey, do you guys offer this? We don't, but we can.
Right.
And so I think if we can get to that point with the Youngstown City Schools and the Chaffin to say, hey, we don't, but we can.
Well, we're telling you right now, we don't, but we can.
That's it. I think when you talk about the access and opportunity, and I think one of the things I love for us to eventually to do, I went to it was Towns and Gowns.
Okay.
It was an educational summit.
Yeah.
It was in Columbus. It was Towns and Gowns, and they brought all the mayors and the colleges and the schools together, and they talked about how do you live and work with one another. I think, and the one thing, it was educational attainment. I think that, we talk about 2025. I keep saying 2025, but guess what?
That's here.
That's here.
That's here.
You're going to need, you need post-secondary education, some type of certificate, some type of extended. You can't come out of high school, grab a broom, and go to the steel mills and have that good quality education. You're going to have to stop somewhere on the way to that career or to that position to get a certificate or some certification or some extended learning to get those jobs that are out there. So I think what we'll do as together, the city and the Youngstown City Schools, to figure out what's out there. And how do we make sure that once they leave Chaffin in June, if they need that post-secondary or their certification, where can they get and how do we get them to be exposed to that?
That's awesome to hear, because actually we're part of Ohio 8, which is the Ohio 8 urban districts, and we meet, the superintendents as well as the union presidents. We meet quarterly, and then we have monthly Zoom meetings. We talk about it, and when I was at my last meeting last month, we actually talked about that with the superintendent from Columbus. Talked about something similar. Now, maybe what she was talking about, this Towns and Gowns. And so I definitely would love for us to maybe sit down and map that out and work with, I know Mr. Coviello from the chamber and Youngstown State and anybody else to figure out what that looks like on our way up. I was talking to the young man in the elevator, and I'm like, hey, what are we doing next year?
I heard you.
And because that's just our heart. And that's our heart, is that it doesn't just stop for us. When I leave here today, I'm going to meet with Lynette Ford at the Youngstown Foundation. Not about what's going to happen in K-12 next year, but about once our scholars leave us and go to Youngstown State and use that WASTAR program, how can we continue to support to make sure they stay there and that they finish?
They get on the other side. That's my biggest piece. I saw it so much growing up. Guys, we go to college. It was like,
right.
You get around that Thanksgiving, Christmas break, the rah-rahs go out a little bit. And if they last through the first year, you're like, whoo. But a lot of times they didn't go back after that first semester. And I think we want to say, well, what is missing? What's what didn't keep you there? And I think one of the pieces that we need to figure out as a community collective, because if we were using the community college as a help,
Yeah.
now where's that gap going to go? And the problem for me, if you say, well, they're doing it outside of the city area, transportation, access.
Absolutely.
I said training, access, and opportunity is big. So we've got to make sure that we can expose them and have access to it. So this whole towns and gowns would be the focus. Now, I think it's right now with the university, with the city of Youngstown, with the Youngstown City Schools, those that are in that area that benefit the most. I think we were talking about the repopulation and what's that look like. I want to make sure we those who are populated stay. So I want to retain the population and then grow the population. Yeah.
Well, we have some work to do then. And
Yeah, absolutely.
So in what ways can young people become more involved in local government and have their voices heard?
Yeah. I always tell people, you got to. I would say first volunteer,
okay,
or even observe what goes into local government. I think I don't think civics it goes deep enough anymore, or it's exposed. I always laugh about my Saturday mornings when I used to Schoolhouse Rock and they had cartoons and they talked. The cartoons was about or that focused on a bill is only a bill, and then what's government. I even anytime I talk to students, I ask what branch of government do you think I'm come from, and they were like, I don't know. I say the president, executive, and I talk about judicial, and then the legislative side. So, and I show the balance of how one catches the other. And then I'll drill it down to city council. I make recommendations to them. They appropriate. I administrate.
Absolutely.
I ask them, hey, can we spend this money? They say you can spend money on this, this, and this, and then I make sure those monies are spent on this, this, and this. We make legislation that the judges uphold. So I think that being exposed to that social dynamic, but I always encourage, kids always say, I want to run for mayor. I say, listen, I might look easy, but I didn't get to this seat just running, just jumping up and saying, I want to run for mayor. I volunteered on different campaigns. I'm a student of the art of being an elected official. I watch others, and I've read books on successful mayors. I wrote books on unsuccessful mayors. So
probably learn as much from that as you.
That's the easy one. That's the easy one.
Yes, sir.
That's the easy one. The ones that are successful is the hard one. The easy ones to watch are the ones who failed, and because if they're as honest, they'll let you know don't go that direction. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I would suggest if they want to get involved. Find out where they want to be. And you don't always have to be elected to make an impact.
Absolutely.
I would say the difference between a king and a kingmaker. Everybody shoots for the king, but the kingmaker still lives. So if you look at the landscape around the nation, those political consultants, you don't hear their names, but they make as much impact as anyone else.
100%. Well, you said the word volunteer to start off that conversation. So I'm going to kind of put the community in our school district on notice. We already have a kind of a graduation requirement at our early college that our students have community service hours.
Okay. Yep.
We don't necessarily have it for our traditional high schools, but it's coming. Okay. Because I believe that actually helps you become a better citizen.
Oh, yeah.
And it helps you become engaged in what's going on in your school and in your community, and prepares you for those post-secondary opportunities, whatever they choose to be, whether it be military, whether it be jobs, whether it be you going to college. And guess what? It also helps you with college applications, because that's one of the things that they ask for is, are you involved in the community? So we're going to be introducing that here soon. All right.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give our scholars who are interested in pursuing a career in public service?
One thing I would say, make sure you get your education. Don't let anyone downplay what your educational level is. I always say, whether once you get at high school, you get that post-secondary, you get your undergrad or grad. I get a lot of people that say, oh, you don't need that. You don't need that to be an elected official. Let me tell you that you might not need it, but you're definitely going to use it when you have it.
Yes,
and it's the foundation for me. It's the foundation. I might not. Sometimes I get in a room, they may use a word that I'm like, I never heard that before. But if you continue on the education, you understand. You know what a Vita is. You get to that point.
Absolutely.
So I say make sure that you have that educational and learn. I'm a constant student of learning. I try to learn something or read a book. they'll say, "What's the last book you read?" I'm like, "Ooh, that's a good question." So you always say, you want to make sure that you continue to be a student. You never stop learning, but and always do what feels right for you, not what someone else tells you. 'Cause I've had people say, "Oh, you could run for this, you could run for that." Even now, what's next? I said, I love what I do right now.
Right.
I feel like I'm in a position of I've had a job that this is, for the last 7 years, I've never had a Groundhog Day. Every day's different for
I
me.
can imagine.
Yeah, every day's different for me. I can start my day off in Youngstown and end up in the State House after the rest of the day, or on my way back home before the 6 o'clock news goes off, and or vice versa. I can be on a plane to D.C. in the morning and be on the Congressional Hill and Capitol Hill, and back home by the 11 o'clock news. So
Okay.
that is what drives me, but also drives me when I can see and I come across families and people that say, "You know what, thank you." And it's always, I always say I learn reasonable, unreasonable. There's
Gotcha.
I don't mind reasonable. Hey, we need to do better with this. Unreasonable is the expectations you put on elected officials. It should not just be that. So I say make sure the educational foundation is there. Learn what you want to do, and just know you don't always have to be elected to be a leader.
Gotcha. And I'll say, I'll give you some kudos. I watched over the last 7 or 8 years and watched how you've handled some, some criticism, and
Yeah.
trust me, I learned a lot watching. Sometimes you just take notes.
You do.
So that's it. So what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership is that those who are willing to stand up
Mhm.
when it's not easy, to make tough decisions when they're not popular. But leadership is also, being able to wanting to tell someone to do something, but you're willing to do it yourself as well. I always say there's a difference between leadership and fellowship. I learned working under somebody for many years. I wasn't the boss. I wasn't the mayor, but I learned how. Okay, what do I need to do? Whether I thought it was the greatest idea or the worst idea, I'm like, okay, you're the leader.
Right.
I'll take it now. And the other thing about leadership, you need to know sometime when somebody can say, "You know what, I don't know if that's going to quite work," and you take it and say, "You know what, you're kind of right." Leadership's all of you got to be coachable. You've got to know that you don't have all the answers. You don't have all the right moves. I would say I might not get it right, but I'm always do the right thing. So
Love that. Write that one down.
you got to be you got to be coachable, man.
Yeah.
And I my staff will tell you they'll be like, "Mayor, you got to think of that, rethink that." I said, "Really? No." They're like, "We got to rethink that," and we do, and 9 out of 9 times it's like, hey, as a collective body, as if I was not a leader who was open, I want to learn. I want you guys to say, "Hey, let's think about doing it this way," because your vision, your eyes are a little different than mine. So that's what leadership, being coachable, knowing fellowship, and understanding that you don't have to have all the right answers. If you're smart enough to find somebody who has the answer better than yours.
Build a strong team.
Yeah.
Build a strong team that can advise you.
I would say if you're the smartest person in the room, get out of there.
There it is.
Yeah.
100%. So you mentioned already, I think, one of your professors, but do you have any other mentors or other leadership kind of gurus that you would like to give a shout out on the podcast?
You know what? I the late Dickie Atkinson just passed away. Dickie was that guy that kind of could help you he could be the dad, he could be the uncle, but he could also be your colleague. And the one thing that I remember he told me when I became on the school board, he says, "I'm gonna give you a piece of advice. You can take it, or you can leave it." He says, "Never go anywhere you can't take your wife." It never dawned on me. And I think he had already known when you become an elected official, you get invited to all these places. He says, "Don't go anywhere you can't take your wife." So if you know now, if somebody sends me an invite, they'll know it's Lynette coming with you, because I've set that precedent for him. Dickie would be one, but and these guys, I keep looking around, and the room gets emptier and emptier. But the Pete Starks of the world, Pete Starks, he showed me. I went to his house, and he showed me how to read a budget. When I got on city council, he said, "Bring me your budget." And he went through it, and this is how you ask a question. This is why you want to ask a question. And I just appreciate those guys, the local guys, just pouring into me. I just like Pete called me and said, "Brown, I need to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." And then bring your budget with you. I'm like, "Bring my budget with me." He knew it was budget season.
Yeah.
So he had done that. I had Mayor Ungaro had not been to City Hall in 30 years until I became mayor, and he came back, and I said, "Hey, you want to take us for a spin?" He sat in the chair, and
cool.
unfortunately, he passed away.
Yeah.
But on a national level, man, Willie Brown.
Okay.
Willie Brown was the former mayor of San Francisco.
Yes,
and I bought a book. It was in a bookstore in Columbus. And the only reason I bought it says Basic Brown with Willie Brown. And in his book, he gave you the basics of how to be a mayor, what color suit to wear, how to conduct yourself in public, how to be a leader. And it was the best. I bet I didn't pay $10 for the book, and I only bought it for the title. I had no idea who Willie Brown was. It was before I was mayor.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I started reading, I was like, man, God put this book in my hand.
Absolutely.
Man. So I talk about Basic Brown with Willie Brown, and I had a chance to meet them, man. It was phenomenal.
So that, I always tie it back to our title. That simple book, like you said, Basic Brown, belly left, simple play. Everybody knows their role, but giving the playbook and then executing it, which you have done over the last 7 years. And so sometimes it's just those simple things that really get us there. And then the names that you mentioned, Mr. Atkinson was my neighbor when I was a little kid growing up in Princeton. And so, we have great leadership here in the city of Youngstown. Oh, yeah. And I love the fact that those folks poured back into you, because we always say, to whom much is given, much is required. Yeah. And so for folks to reach back, and then I know you do the same thing, we keep that leadership going in our community. Yeah, so I'm excited. I tell people all the time, I moved away. I moved away from Youngstown twice and moved back twice.
All right.
So there's something special about this place. We have our challenges, but there's something special about this place that always brings people back home. So,
that's it.
Any parting words, anything you want to share with the community?
One of the things I always tell people, I used to, one of my greatest jobs I had, other than being a father, is I was a DJ.
Okay.
And every time I would leave the room, I would just always tell them, be safe, be kind, most often just be yourself. Okay. And that was the role I had an uncle, and that's how he used to pour into me. He said, just be safe, be kind, and just be yourself. And I think I try to be that. I try to live by that, no matter what we're doing. And I try to tell kids to do that. And the one thing I want them to do is just be yourself. People say, man, you haven't changed since you become mayor. My dad would say, if it changed, he wouldn't recognize it. So I won't be doing this all my life. When I'm done being mayor, I still want to make sure I still got friends. I don't want to, that's why I just want to be myself. I don't want to go back and they're like, man, you was mayor, you didn't stop by, or you didn't go fishing with us, or we didn't go out and hang out. So I still, friends and family. Matter of fact, I went to visit one of my aunties, and she told my mother, she said, he don't seem like no mayor. He seems like Tito. And that's who I am. So I don't get too serious about yourself. People, anybody know me. I love to have fun and laugh and joke. But when it comes to doing your work, get your work done and then have fun.
Man, that's the greatest compliment you can get, is when your people that are your people still know who you are, and you still who you are. My grandmother used to say, when I went to college, she said, don't go up there and become no educated fool.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. And so, we can do the jobs that we've been assigned to do, but, I'm always going to be Jeremy from the South Side. Yeah. You're always going to be Tito from the North Side.
Well, so, Jamel's the mayor. Tito's the guy you went to school
with. You go. There you go. Mayor, I have enjoyed myself, and I really appreciate you being here. And again, I appreciate the collegiality that you've provided for me, the advice, and just being a sounding board when I need to.
Anytime, man.
Looking forward to what we can continue to do in the city to support the city, and then also continue to make Youngstown the best school district it can be, and the best city. We want to be a destination school district. Yeah. We know we have our challenges, but we intend to be the school district that the scholars of Youngstown deserve, that can then produce citizens for Mayor Brown. So thank you again, Belly Left Leadership. We'll be back with another episode. Take care.
This podcast is the property of Shofin Broadcasting and Youngstown City Schools. Shofin audio and video broadcasting students recorded and produced this episode.